I think USC is back, baby.
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Holkin, and thank you for making Locked On USC your first listen every day. Whether you're watching on YouTube or wherever you like to download your podcast, we are free. I appreciate your support. I really appreciate your support. Thank you for making this show as great as it is. You can make it even better. If you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor. Become a subscriber. Hit that subscribe button. And when you hit that thumbs up button, you send this show into a whole nother era. And we also come at you 5 times a week. Hit the bell notification button, and that way you will not miss an episode. So it's taken, 6 years, but USC is back at the top. As you see at the rundown, USC, the Pac-12 Media voters came out with their preseason poll, and it looks like the Pac-12 Media voters have decided that USC is back where they belong. They voted them number one. In fact, the Trojans were voted the overwhelming number one choice from the Pac-12 Media voters when that was released on Thursday. You're watching this episode of Locked On USC Friday. Pac-12 Media Day is happening as I am speaking to you, especially if you're making this your first listen. So again, this is the first time that USC has been selected the preseason outright champion since going back to 2017. But by the way, that's when the Trojans also won the conference title. Now, in between 2017 and 2023, Trojans have been picked to win the South part of the conference in 2018, 20, and 2021. And then USC made it to the championship game in 2020. Utah beat them for that spot in both 2018 and 2021. We know what happened last year. Nevertheless, USC still finished 11-3 following a 4-8 2021 season. So here was my unofficial ballot. Here's how I would have presented my number 1 through 12 teams had I cast a ballot. USC would have been number 1, Washington 2, Oregon State number 3, Utah at number 4, Oregon at 5, Wazoo 6, Arizona 7, UCLA 8, Arizona State, Cal, Stanford, Colorado. Now, here is how the actual real vote turned out. And you can see I'm not that far off. USC came away with 25 first place votes, 413 total points. Washington was 4 first place votes. They had 367 total overall points. Utah had 6 first place votes. Oregon had 1. Oregon State came in 5th. UCLA was 6th. Washington State number 7. Arizona 8. Cal number 9. And then 10, 11, and 12th in order, Arizona State, Colorado, and Stanford. So you can see I was pretty much in line there. Maybe a couple of differences. My first question is, first of all, I need to know who was the comedian, who was the joker that gave Oregon that number 1 vote? Someone let me know. I was obviously a lot higher on Oregon State which is kind of weird, since all these voters are the same ones who, kind of put half of Oregon State's team in either the first or second team all Pac-12 selections. So, I don't know. Interesting that they pulled back how well they'll do as a team. Now, and I also love the prevailing thought that you hear when this was released, that USC is always overrated, always overhyped. Well, that just kind of shows you how much people pay attention or really don't pay attention to the polls to when the stuff comes out. Because again, as a reminder, This is the first time USC has been selected as the preseason outright champion going back to 2017. So are they always overhyped? Yeah, probably not. Here's the reason why USC was the overwhelming favorite among the voters. It's because they return the best head coach in the conference, definitely the best play caller in Lincoln Riley. You're returning Caleb Williams at quarterback. He's a Heisman winner. And it's his second year in this system. And, if we're being really honest, USC's offense, it didn't really have much trouble dealing with Pac-12 defenses their first year. It's probably going to be better the second time around. And again, you've got Lincoln Riley, Caleb Williams, and then you've got a boatload of elite playmakers on offense. So for as much, shade as USC's defense got in 2022, and deservedly so, no one else really has the personnel in the Pac-12 to stop USC offensively. Oregon State isn't on their schedule this year, and they played USC tougher than anyone not named Utah. So I don't think it's possible for USC's defense to play worse than they did in spots last year. That's not a challenge. I really don't think they can be any worse than they were last year. So I think it's hard to argue against USC at this point, especially when you consider what they did during the offseason to shore up some of those defensive holes through the transfer portal. Number 2, Washington with Michael Penix at quarterback. He has his guys at wide receiver. And so there's good reason for the high, finger quotes, expectations up in Seattle. I guess the question that everybody is really going to be asking, does Washington have the depth? As the season goes on, will they be able to hang around? And then as far as, teams 3 and 4, according to the voters, both Oregon and Utah, they need their quarterbacks to be healthy if they want to have any chance to compete for the conference championship. Oregon has their running game led by Bucky Irving, and they have some wide receivers that have shown some potential. So we'll see if they made any improvements on the other side of the ball, because their defense was no bueno, no better than USC's in 2022. In fact, it was just downright pathetic. And then as far as Utah, Cameron Rising, he's still rehabbing right now that ACL injury. So the question is, is he going to be ready for the beginning of the season? And can he stay healthy throughout the entire season? One thing you will always get out of a Kyle Whittingham coach team is they're going to be tough as nails. So, they'll be competitive, but personally, I think they're going to take a step back this season. And let's not forget, they will be playing in LA. So the next group, the groups 2 through 4, I think you probably just throw them in a hat, mix them up, and just start pulling out the name. Between Washington, Utah, Oregon, doesn't matter. They're all in a race to finish behind USC. The conference itself, I think, is top heavy. You got those first 4 teams are going to be the teams that everybody's going to consider for a New Year's Day bowl game, or in USC's case, playoffs. The conference is mediocre in the middle, and then it's just really bad at the bottom. There's just not a lot there. So USC, the schedule sets up well. They're going to have a way to end up going 6-0, because that first part of the season for USC, cakewalk. But that second half of the season, Utah, Notre Dame, and then everything after that, we'll see. But I think the voters have enough confidence to say USC's going to win the conference for the first time outright since 2017. And they win that conference championship game, end up with 1 loss or less. USC is back in the playoffs, back where they belong. We are back, baby. Hey, when you want to build a championship team, you know you got to recruit well. Well, for a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. Well, guess what? It's the same thing when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head on over to eBay Motors. With eBay's guaranteed fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right for the first time around. Here's all you need to do. Just add your ride to the My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit on your vehicle. And if it doesn't, it's money back guaranteed. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items and exclusions do apply. So I have been talking about, this whole off season leading up to Pac-12 Media Day and the upcoming season, which, by the way, fall camp starts in just over a week. Man, we are there. Pac-12 Media Day is today. So who are some of the guys that we're not talking about enough? We talk about the players we anticipate to lead the team. The Caleb Williams. At running back, we talk about Austin Jones and Marshawn Lloyd. At wide receiver, we're anticipating Brendan Rice. Earlier in the week, I mentioned, like the guys who were from the offensive line who I thought kind of got snubbed a little bit with the all Pac-12 selections. And then I talked about the wide receivers who couldn't even get a sniff for honorable mention. Oh, maybe there's players on USC that aren't getting the same type of mention, or I don't know, maybe the respect isn't the right word, but the enough mention to be for consideration for this season. We'll call them the under the radar type of guys that can kind of pop for USC in 2023. Last year, Tyrone Taleni, he came over, he made his presence felt, he became a regular contributor, and on the defensive line, behind Tuli Tuiapelotu, he was the second on the team in sacks with 5.5. So, got me wondering, why wasn't Tyrone getting any love from the Pac-12 media? Not even honorable mention. Is he going to be the forgotten guy in 2023 for USC? I hope not. I mean, last year, as a reminder, 25 tackles, 7.5 of those were for loss, 5 sacks, 5.5 to be accurate, 3 quarterback hurries. He forced a fumble. He appeared in all 12 games, started the last 9. And he was named to the AP All Pac-12 second team. He's not worthy of honorable mention preseason. Look, if he plays as much as he did in 2022, that means he deserves it again. And I think he's going to have a just as a significant role for USC this year as he did last year, even with all those guys that USC brought in. Here's another guy that I think his time has finally arrived. I'm not talking about all Pac-12 under the radar. At the end of the year, we can talk about that. I'm talking about for USC. I'm talking about Solomon Tuliaupupu. Just kind of remind everybody what Lincoln Riley said after the spring game. Quote, Solo's really improved. He's definitely been one of the standouts of spring. He's such a tough, competitive, physical guy that everything basically was just a bull rush and running there and trying to win on a guts and toughness and physicality, but not much on technique. Well, you're starting to see him become more refined as a player. And with that, he's able to win in different ways. And he's affecting the game more right now. So he's been one of our steadiest, but also one of our most explosive players on the edge. If Solo has a senior season where he becomes that refined, technically sound defensive end who is more than just a bull rush, USC's defense is going to be really good because Solo has an attitude. And if you ever watched him, you understand what I'm talking about. You want that type of attitude. And that type of attitude will carry over to the Bear Alexanders, to the Jack Sullivans, the Anthony Lucas. This is the type of attitude you want. Another guy who, it happened late last year, but I think the coaches are finally ready to trust him and put him in the game and make him a part of the regular rotation. Rajon Davis, inside linebacker. He needs to be on the field more. He got his chance in that bowl game against Tulane, took advantage of it, and if you've seen him any of his off-season workouts, looks much bigger too. So I think for Rajon now, all he's got to do is really deal with there's a lot more depth this year. So I think everybody anticipates Eric Gentry and Mason Cobb being these starting inside linebackers. And then, his biggest, besides those guys, you've got Shane Lee, and then you also got the rookie freshman Taka Curtis. So linebacker is pretty deep, but I believe Rajon this is going to be his year. It's going to be good stuff happening. If we go to the other side of the ball, keep an eye on wide receiver Kyron Hudson. He just does his job. He doesn't talk. When I watch him, guy catches everything. There's always somebody under the radar that kind of just blows up out of nowhere. You hear the names in the really deep wide receiver room. You really never hear Kyron's name come up. Well, I'm bringing it up. I don't want people to forget that name. Another guy on offense, running back Darwin Barlow. We've talked about his name comes up a lot, but with that transfer portal, last year it was Travis Dye and Austin Jones. This year it's Austin Jones and Marshawn Lloyd. Don't count out Darwin Barlow. He got a little bit of run during that UCLA game, and he showed the coaches what he can do. He can be a physical runner. Maybe he will be USC's power back in this season, in certain situations. Tight end, we know Lake McCree. Is Jude Wolfe ready? Is he healthy? Please be healthy, Jude Wolfe. We want him. I just want 10 receptions. Give me 10 receptions from Jude because he's a unique presence on the field. He's 6'5", 6'6", long arms, physically imposing. He can block. But man, he's a defensive mismatch for pretty much any safety, any nickelback. I have a feeling if Jude's healthy, we're finally going to see why he was considered one of the top tight ends in the country coming out of high school. So there you go. Some names under the radar, guys we don't talk about enough, but have an opportunity this year to really make a name. And let's see if, every year Lincoln Riley talks about somebody just coming out of nowhere to make something happen. Maybe one of these guys will be that. All right, Friday, it means it's time to rant. And I got to be honest with you, I'm not even sure I have a right to be frustrated. Nevertheless, Pac-12 Media Day is today, July 21st. The season kicks off on August 26th against San Jose State. We're aware of that. We know that. Well, that means that the Trojans are ready to begin fall camp in less than a week. The reason why I'm a little frustrated is I don't know what the practice schedule is yet. They've got 29 practices that I know they got to get squeezed in before that first game starts. Now, I guess what I'm hoping for is a pleasant surprise. However, I am anticipating that I think the media is going to get what we had last year, maybe even less access because there's just so much on the line this year. The anticipation of you got Caleb Williams, knowing that this is probably one of USC's best chances to get back to the playoffs. I think Lincoln Riley just might circle the wagons and say, you know what, we'll give the media what they need, but not what they want. So I just wish I knew what the practice schedule was so I can start planning my schedule. Is it going to be mornings? Is it going to be afternoons? Last year was in the afternoon. I'm fine with that. I don't care either way. I would just like to know. So not really a lot to rant and vent out about. I'm the type of person who likes to plan ahead. And I don't know. It just seems like waiting till the last minute to find out what the practice schedule is, not necessary. Not mad. I would just prefer to know. That way I have something else to talk about, and I'm not reaching for something to be upset about. So I'm out of here. That's the end of the week for Locked On USC. I'll have a bunch of updates from Pac-12 Media Day. Keep an eye on Twitter. I'll be putting stuff out there. And I will have a complete wrap-up from Pac-12 Media Day going on all next week on these episodes of Locked On USC. But I should probably let everybody know before we get out of here. It's a short show today. Taylor Tatum, it's not happening. So, will Kingston Viliamu Asa, will he save the day? Will USC get a commitment this weekend? Mike Matthews chose Tennessee on Wednesday. Taylor Tatum is anticipated to stay close to home and choose Oklahoma on Friday. That leaves Kingston Viliamu Asa, the linebacker, St. John Bosco, Sunday. I'm sticking with my prediction. I have a feeling it's going to be Notre Dame. We'll find out soon enough. Until then, everyone, you know what to do.